this is concerned.
Yeah. So I would just say, like, continue to protect our Haitian country, because when we do, we're protecting ourselves in a, not in a selfish manner, but in a humane manner.
Indeed.
Because as Caribbean people, we also go through our fair share of discrimination and racism, but none of them go through it just as Haiti ever. Look at the situation they are right now. I'm like,
it's again, you can. Everything has a historical context.
Yes,
and that's what we're reminded of. But what we're getting from this article is that there are ways to show compassion.
Yes.
There are ways to show compassion and to say, I got your back.
Yes.
Right now at this time, we are with you. And we in St Maarten are doing a good job.
Yeah.
That's what we say. You want to do quick? Before we go to today's topic?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, sorry.
So this is just what came out, and it was in the newspaper, and it really took me. Okay, this was the story headline: "The Dutch Caribbean Special Providence of the Netherlands," which on Wednesday's editorial was based on an April Fool's joke, and the author of this column obviously fell for it. Nevertheless, consider earlier statements by political parties involved, etc., etc. But basically what it was saying, it was this April Fool's joke stating that the Netherlands was about to make all 6 islands into the 13th province of the Netherlands. And they're saying it was a joke. And for me, what really affected me was, how do you feel so comfortable to make a joke like that? And how do you consider that a joke if you're not taking the other person's feelings into consideration? Because all jokes are based on norms and culture, and that took none into consideration.
So you mean the author of the joke?
Yes. Yeah.
So who was the author of the joke? Do we know from the article?
Which newspaper it came from?
I know it was the Netherlands newspaper in April.
Yeah.
Because I sent it to somebody. Somebody sent it to me on April 1st, but it was a Dutch article. And when I saw it was in Dutch. And they sent it to me. They was like, is this a joke? Is this an April Fool's joke? And I was like, it better be, else we'll have another 30th in May.
Right.
So I went back to sleep. But then after, when I get up, I sent it to somebody, who involved in Netherlands politics. They were like, nah man, April Fool. I said, okay, let me go back to sleep. I keep making that old people say, keep making jokes. But no, Anderson, I think you raise a good point there, because a lot of these things, people like to tell you it was just a joke. Or people's in a drunk man talk is really telling you what.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Keep putting these things in jokes. You see what happened in Stacia, right? I ain't saying nothing. Congratulations to the Stacia, Miss Alida Francis, to her on her success. But I think it's a travesty what happened in Stacia with that whole thing and that whole process. And that wasn't a joke. And nobody ain't saying nothing. And I kind of like, what's going on in Stacia? What are they drinking over there?
Yeah. But remember, they dropped an investigation on them also. So they know how to shut them up.
Yeah, they shut them up for the investigation. What's the result of the investigation? So there shouldn't have been no swearing in until the investigation. The investigation is about who leaked and how it leaked. But I ain't the issue. You deviate.
No, but that's what
you deviate from the problem, right?
That's the red herring, and it's my understanding.
So what are drinking in Stacia?
3 out of the 5 council members did not attend this thing. So
of course I wouldn't. 5 voted for somebody else. They bypassed that. I don't know what audience were going on here.
Yeah.
They bypassed the 5 executive council members' decision and put somebody else in. And for Miss Francis, I mean, kudos to her. This ain't taking away nothing from Miss Francis. No. I don't know. I don't know if I could do what she does.
No,
I for sure couldn't do it. Just a thought. But nobody ain't like, what are you drinking in Stacia? That's all I keep asking. How?
But also you hear nobody over here saying
nobody over here ain't saying nothing either. So that's why those jokes.
When your neighbor house on fire,
put your water wet yours. Yeah.
But nobody here
but nobody didn't say nothing when they removed Clyde and them from office.
Yeah.
Nobody here didn't stand up when they manipulate the referendum.
Right.
Nobody here ain't stand up when the second election, when he win again, and they didn't seat him.
Exactly.
Nobody here didn't say, even when they did seat him after 2 years, after whatever it is, after the fact, they take away some of the powers that they will put a governor in Sabre. No, a station. Nobody is. How come Sabre don't have a governor?
Interesting.
How come Sabre don't have a governor?
And save us more.
But it's very,
what they drinking in station? I just want to know what station people drinking because listen, don't make a joke and say man. That's all I gonna say.
No, but they make different type of
no,
jokes.
but yeah, but I'm telling you from now. I
tell
telling you from now, make it sound like a joke. Don't try that joke.
It
Yeah,
looks,
that's all I
looks
gonna
different.
say.
It happening here. It
That's all I
looks
gonna
differently. It looks very much because they know what to do. They know how to
Monkey know what
do
tree to climb. We say.
And exactly. And but I think we can't estimate the station people because from my ears to the ground, the people are talking about it.
No talking
Now,
you helping the situation. How we had a swearing in ceremony?
Yeah,
I
don't.
You
but
get
I
that
want to
swearing in ceremony?
I say I'm watching as an outsider. I'm watching because I'm like, we will hear this in the last of this story. This is what I think.
You could say what you want. This thing comes in small bite-sized pieces. Guys, you're not following it. Pay attention to the template of these people. This is a historical template. Listen, I'll tell you one thing about the Dutch and the French, they're kind of like the same people. When I say people, I talk about you, the individuals, so get over yourself. We're talking about the state and the way they move, the system they move. They're a bunch of cowards. If you confront them, they're a backdoor. They're a backdoor. But what they're going to do is they'll come back at you nice and benign. And they'll do sometimes worse. But they'll do it, but they'll tell you no. They'll tell you. They'll tell you. So when you already talk about kingdom partners, they got you drinking the Kool-Aid and you repeating the thing, right?
Budget situation. It was like, okay, we followed the instruction, we followed orders, we were able to get carpet.
I need to stop. Stop.
You know, that's an example of...
Okay. Yeah, that added to my grief, so I need to stop.
I just given an example of it. So what you saying, that's what happened.
That's
and
really
that is what
happened
happened here. That example
because it's so blatant. It's so blatant.
Exactly.
And
that is what happened, you know.
Don't try that joke, it's man. That's all I can say. I'm wrapping this up with don't. I remember I make a post on Facebook once. They say Maarten is not station. Some station people attack me, right? Some good friends. They say, what do you mean by that? I said, all I'm saying is that St Maarten station. And they said, what I mean? I said, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
nothing ain't come out of that.
I
repeat it. St Maarten station.
I want to mention another thing because our dearly beloved family, the Daily Herald. Okay. So because whenever there is a local something with our politicians or whatever the case may be, they would be talking about flowers. But they're going to bring back that issue or that scandal that happened from way back when, and they're going to bring back the whole story. We talk about the minister of whoever, what whole so-called scandal comes back in that is unrelated to
who published the scandal, but that's okay.
But when it comes to this issue now, with appointment of the governor in station, nothing from the Daily Herald about the background and issue directly related to this in no kind of factual objective way. So I just want to point that out. Your media, pay attention. Stay sharp, people. Stay sharp.
No, but don't call it media. Stop it. You mean the Daily Herald, they published it. Okay, we get it.
No, I'm talking about they published they wrote the article about her being appointed.
That's what I'm saying. They published the background story. You're right.
No,
and don't expect it. Let me just say that.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Don't expect it.
Just look at
we understand the agenda. We understand the agenda, and we calling you out because we want you to know we see you.
We see you.
We see you.
And we listening.
Amen.
Yes. All right.
Yes. I want to introduce a friend. She's a friend. I must say that she's a friend. She's a colleague, a former colleague, but she's a friend. But more than that, this woman is known on the island like for her work in working with people on a number of levels. We've talked about that. So today our topic is management of grief, and we felt that we had some names that were we discussed as a team who would be the best person in St Maarten to help us as a community to understand this thing and to help us work through it. And first name that everybody, I didn't even have to tell the young people who she was, because the young people knew. Think not too many people are the young and the old know in St Maarten, okay? So that was refreshing, so I want to say that. We're speaking on none other than our dear Dr. Judith Arndell. she will tell us her background, because I know you see Erwin doing that. That's exactly what's coming. So that's where I drop off here, because the next goes to Erwin. And this is a question that is being posed before we get started with any conversation. We gotta go through Erwin.
All right. Good afternoon, doctor.
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon.
I asked this question to all my guests, whether they're ready or not. But today's an interesting topic, so I can be gentle. Please let us know.
Who I fuck?
Yeah, your mother and your father. Where your father?
Who you fuck?
Okay.
Your whole story.
I'll start from the closest. My father was Jocelyn Andel.
Oh,
Yep.
That was my father. I'm his second child.
Oh no, you know.
really?
Yes. And my grandmother was Lillian Andel Matthew, so I'm connected to the Matthews. My mother was Angela Ray, a lady from Angola, a beautiful lady inside and out. And yeah, that's my genetics.
Yeah, her tribe.
But
That's good. You're good with that, you know, Justin and them.
that's close. That's the closest I think that I could share that makes sense to everybody around here. Most people doesn't.
It makes complete sense. It sounds like your whole statement, a whole cabin word to or something.
My father would say she from big people.
I'm satisfied with this answer.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So now give us some background on your background.
Your background, how you got to be
I
here.
just about Swaligan stuff.
Yeah.
And tell us who you are, you know, as a Swaligan.
It's so hard to start, but basically, everybody knows who I am, Judith Handel. Most people call me Dr. J. I hold a doctorate degree in clinical psychology. I've been around since 1990, so I have over 30 years experience in the field. I've had a private practice for almost 30 years. I've done a little bit of everything on the island. Wear many hats. Still wear many hats, though I closed my practice in 2015. I manage a lot of projects. I have foundations, and with the shelter, with the homes, those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
I have a team that works along with me, with social workers, counselors, other workers that works along with me with my projects. So I've been doing that for the last maybe almost 10 years.
Wow.
I'm an author. I have a book called Secret Pains that has to do with dealing with persons who have feelings of abandonment, who was raised by another person whose parents left them behind, and what that whole psychological effect has been on that person on into adulthood, and how it affects us in our relationships in the way we view the world. I also have another book. It's a prayer log. It has to do with the virtuous woman prayer log. So that is out, and I'm busy with 2 other books that hopefully should be out by the ending of this year. So now I have more time to be able to finish those up. So that's in the making. And I love the people, I love my community, I love to help people, to give, to do what I can from my heart, and generally, because I generally do care for people. And at this stage, I'm trying to keep it balanced, try to slow it down to be able to do some more things that I really want to do for, my passion, but still incorporate where I can still reach and assist persons on a larger scale.
Question.
Go ahead.
What influenced you to become a psychologist, right? What was the motivation behind?
Well, I took it up in school. I think a lot has to do with my personality, and just knowing that everybody would always migrate towards me with their problems, to talk, to discuss, and I think it started from there. And once I started taking psychology courses, I find that I found my passion where I belong.
Where you belong.
Yeah, so
Nice.
That's it?
Yeah. That's it.
We're going to be talking today, like I said, just before you got in, I don't know if you were able to hear us. We had already planned this topic last week. We said we're going to talk about this for a while because both Shishi and I and some of our members have lost close family members.
Yes.
And while you're trying to help and hold up, you're bang. And we'd already gone through this. And then this week we lost again some other close people. I lost a former colleague at the university, and then this morning, someone who's like a son to me, you know, I don't know, I don't even know what went on with my head right now. So I want Doc and Judith, being calling Judith Doc, however I work it out. She's a friend because I remember coming to you years ago dealing with my own stuff. Remember walking in the office, I went and I got the right thing. I went and I got a referral letter from from my doctor, who's Dr. Bryson at the time. I was like, the stuff that I'm dealing with, I was smart enough, I guess maybe because I studied some psychology at school too, because this is not something that was talked about when we were growing up. Nobody talked about talking to other people about your problem. If anything, they say stop telling people your business, right? That's how we were raised. But I know, and I guess because too, I was around you guys at Turning Point, I just know the burden I was carrying was too much for me. And I needed help. And I remember going to Dr. Bryson and I said, I need a referral, you know, because and I walk in your office and I say, I ain't come here as a friend. I come here as a patient because I need help. Remember that conversation? Okay. Because I needed help. I think I had the good sense to know I needed help. But a lot of us don't know we need help. That's a start, right?
Yeah.
So tell us, you know, this whole notion of grief, what it is, and some of the things that people will come to. We'll talk in general. We're talking grief management, but I know, you know, my father had last year, I was pregnant, but there were a lot of things happening, and I felt like this burden I was carrying was driving me crazy. On my own, let a girl sit down, let a girl stand up. On my own, I felt like I was falling apart. And going back to the young man today, like I said, I've talked to him over the years. I haven't talked to him recently, and it's funny that he was on my mind before I came here. And all I kept thinking this morning when I heard what happened was like, I wonder why I didn't reach out to see if there's something I could have done. Or somebody else. And I'm sure his family feels it, because apparently this was not the first attempt. So there's another story there. Talk to us how people get to there. What are some of the things you see that people get to? And then let's go into the discussion. Yeah, define what grief is and how we deal with that.
Okay, well, grief, we all know is an emotion that we feel, that we go through when we lost somebody. When we lost someone that's very close to us, we have this emotion, this pain that we go through. But the most important thing is that understanding that grief is very personal, and everybody goes through it in their way. And sometimes persons tend to want to tell other people how to grieve, and nobody should tell nobody how to grieve, because there is no set way of grieving. Everybody has their way and has their style. It is a difficult moment. It's very challenging for the person who's going through grief, especially when you've been very, very close to the person. So there's no words can describe, you know, what that person is feeling. And even though a person can sympathize with you and they might be able to relate, your feelings are your feelings, and your emotion are your emotion based on your connection and the love and the joy that you had experienced over time with this, you know, person that you've lost. So, you know, grief is a process. It's not an overnight thing. It's not a 1, 2, 3. Persons, you know, it can take up to a year, sometimes 2 years, for a person to be able to completely put it in place and let go. Though there are times when it doesn't resolve properly or grieve properly, what you call complicated grief.
Right.
And complicated grief comes when a person don't let go, they hold on. They are still in that place of the memories and emotionally not letting it go the way they're supposed to process it. And that can become difficult to over time, because then you can also become ill and go through different psychological emotions and those kind of things. And we can talk a little bit more into that, you know.
Okay, so what problems can happen if you don't allow complicated grief to work its way out?
If you experience a complicated grief, experience an extended period of intensified grieving over a period of extended period of time, you can become psychologically depressed, long-term depression. You can have insomnia. You can get physical pains such as backache, neck pain, those kind of things, digestive issues, heart problems, lung problems, breathing problems, anxiety. There's a whole gamut of problems that can come out of that, because you have to remember that grief is an emotion, and emotion is like energy. and it got to go somewhere. You have to move it, and if you don't move it, it affects you. If you don't process it, it affects you. It has to come out. It has to be replaced. You have to do something with that energy. So sometimes person gets stuck. That energy gets stuck. You know, I remember reading a book long time ago called "Emotions Buried Alive," and that is something to really understand, because emotion has to be processed. You have to deal with it, because if not, and you suppress it, it comes and it catches you just when you least expect. It drops you, it pulls you. So you want to know why you're crying, why you feel like this, all of a sudden for no real reason. You know, so we have to process emotions. Some person process emotions, you know, right away. Some people, you know, have the courage to go through what they need to go through, and then maybe 2-3 months after that, the grief hit them. But everybody's different. Everybody's different, and men process emotions, grief different than women. You know, so who's to say, oh, he ain't cry, he's supposed to cry, and she ain't cry, or, you know, or when you're crying for the person not dead, leave them go. You know, those kind of people come with those kind of things that they don't know. You know, they don't know. So it's a process. It is a process that people should be allowed to process and go through.
In their own way.
In their own way, because it is personal.
Yeah. And I think as a community, I first of all, I don't think that we talk about it enough, about grief, about that kind of pain. And then there's this level of how to say it, this religious like undertone to it, which, you know, if that works for you, that's fine, but it doesn't work for everybody. And then there's this assumption that is,
if you ain't following that template.
Yeah, if you follow that template, that something is wrong. Or I also don't think that we are sensitive enough to realize that doesn't work for everybody. Because so if you, I mean, I had it 7 years ago. My grandmother passed away, and if you know, she was like my mother. So I definitely went through complicated grief and some other things after that. I had to go to therapy, all of those things. But in that moment, and you got people coming up to you and say, "She in a better place." That's what God wants. You know, that kind of thing. It's like you two parties. It's like my body is there, but my mind is like, if you don't get out of my face right now, and you put yourself in it, you kind of tie up yourself during the process. You also tell yourself, you know, I know they mean it well. They don't mean it in no negative way. However, I think we need to raise our awareness when it comes to this topic and realize that what works for you may not work for everybody else. And since I experienced that, I don't ever say that's what whoever wants this, that. I say, I wish you more moments of peace than pain. Because I remember taking it one breath at a time. Exactly. I remember taking it 1 minute at a time. I remember, you know, a day was too much to think about. So when in that moment, telling somebody, okay, what works for you, so I think we need to also be sensitive to what we, as custom, we think is custom, that doesn't work for everybody, and certainly not in every situation either. You know what I mean? Because what informs or influences your way of grieving is also probably how the person died. You know, so we got to be so sensitive about that. I don't think we're sensitive enough to that. If you have anything to say about it.
Yes, exactly. I think that, and you're correct, persons don't know what to say. And they don't really mean it in a bad way, but sometimes it can take a little, you know, sensitivity, sometimes, especially given how the person may have died, you know, in that way. So I think it always comes from a good place, but sometimes some person doesn't know what to say, how to say, to stay away, you know, and those things, but they're trying to console you and say she's in a better place, but that person don't need to hear that at that moment.
Yeah, we need to
just be a little more sensitive. But again,
aware.
It comes from them just
not knowing.
They want to help.
They want to help.
As a community, you want to do your part. Because like what we just went, I got a lot of those comments. But an elderly said to me yesterday, she's out of her pain, and I said, because I felt some of that. And I said, yes. So how I try to process, because again, like you said, it's, you know, it would be good. And it's the moments when you're by yourself. It's the moments when you have to deal with that memory and you and that person, that things hit you. And I'm questioning, really, I'm telling my mom, like, I really pray that you're no longer suffering. I want to believe that for me to be okay with you gone.
Right.
Because I don't know what she's going through. But for me to accept that I'm okay with her not here, I want to believe that that's okay. She's, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So now coming back to this thing with this young man, and you know, Doc, you've helped a lot of people on this island. Almost everybody at some point had gone through your hand. And at Turning Point, you know, we dealt with a lot of substance abuse and young people who are fighting all kinds of demons. They've gone through this. And I can't say for sure what the issue would have been with Mr. Rudy Brooks. I'll just call his name because he's a real person to me. I don't know, but I remember, you know, like a spirit was saying, and this woman I was in DC, something ain't right, but we don't follow up because, you know, everybody dealing with their stuff. But while you dealing with your stuff, somebody else dealing with your stuff. When a person gets to that point now that they leave us, how do we process, like, did I do enough?
The guilt.
The guilt. Yeah, you know. How do?
Yeah, I think that that's a very good question. You have to know for yourself, within yourself, have you done what your heart ask of you to do for that person? That's one. If there been conflicts, if there been unresolved emotions, you know, those kind of things comes in play. But you should always be in a place not to go back. You know, because the minute, suppose I had done it, if I had to do it, you know, the minute you go and you start going back and suppose
that would kill you.
Yeah, you cannot undo, and there's nothing you can do. So I always encourage person to stay away from, maybe if I should have done this, maybe I should have done that.
Don't forget, I wish.
And I wish, you know. So stay away from that because it is what it is. And so you want to.
You have to accept that you can't change it.
Yeah, you cannot change it. And if you were able to and in a place to do so, you probably would have done.
Yes.
But the mind is something that you got to be able to manage and control, because that mind will take you on a journey in a place that will destroy you. So you got to control that. And it is very creative. And when those thoughts start to come, and if you don't know how to manage those thoughts, it will run away with you and put you in a place where you can become, you know, destructive to yourself.
And harmful for yourself.
You want to. My point always stay away from that. It is finished, and you can't go back and undo. Look at where you are now and how you're going to change, or what have you learned from this experience that you can do different moving forward.
But it sounds so logical when you hear it, but it's so difficult to do when you're in that situation. Let's just take an example. Somebody had a terrible argument, wasn't talking to a parent for some years, and the person passed away. Or you feel I'm okay. No, that was not my situation at all. But I'm saying I can say it because I've also been there. Because what happens in that kind of situation, there's a finality to it. The person gone.
You can't fix it. Like this man, I kept saying I want to.
Yeah. It sounds illogical, especially if you're not in a moment. But when you're in that moment, and that guilt grip you, that feeling of regret grip you, you know.
How do you process that?
How do you deal? Oh, I hope I chamber it. But what would you tell something like how? It's just a little more complicated, like to tell your brain to just, and I know for me it came down to literally fighting myself to when the train start to go down that road, to stop it, to shake myself out of it, to jump up and do something. I had to do that because else it would just take you. So I'm very familiar with that road. But how would you? What else? What
do you give? What tools?
Well, the thing is that, and you're correct, when you start that process of, you know, guilt tripping, unless somebody can pull you out of it, it's kind of difficult at that moment. But if you are so deep in it, and you need to get the resolve, sometimes say, well, hey, write a letter to them. You write a letter and read it out loud, go over the beach, stir it up, send it in the clouds, or or whatever. Sometimes people go to the cemetery to make peace, and say what I have to say. So there are ways of doing that. So it's not.
I wanted to ask that because I mentioned it Sunday on Culture Time. You see people visiting the graves and stuff. I'm like, why? you think do people go there like to make peace or to really?
People go there. A lot of people go there to make peace, but that's on their desire. You know, because some people say, "Don't go to the grave." You know, you should go to the cemetery.
Yeah,
But if you have a feeling and you want to go there to make peace, I always encourage my clients to go. You go, and if they want me to go with them, I go with them.
Okay.
You know, because that's one way of making peace, or coming to terms to say what you want to say, even though the person can't hear you and all that good stuff. But at least you're able to symbolically, you know, release it.
And so it does work.
It does work.
Yeah,
It does
and
work.
for everybody, it looks different.
Yeah.
It looks, and then there's so much questions that come into my mind.
Dr. Judith, okay, what if okay, I'll give myself as an example. My mother came to me and told me, "Hey, your friend Dorothy passed away," and I was like, "Dorothy,
boy.
who?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "Dorothy." She was like, "How much Dorothy's you know?" And I was like, "Only Dorothy Richardson." And up to today, I am still in shock. And I don't feel like I'm going through the grieving process. And we were basically, before she passed away, we were in conversation like a week before, and we were talking about planning an event because I usually collaborate with her on certain events. So up to now, I don't feel like I'm grieving. And every time I hear her name, and every time I hear the death announcement or I see something about her pop up, it still hits me like I'm just hearing it for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's weird for me. It's never happened before.
Yeah, it's sometimes that happens. You can be called denial or in shock, accepting the reality. Like it doesn't sound real, it's impossible.
Yeah.
But that also comes to when it's too painful to bring it too close to process, so it stays out, it stays away, it stays at a distance, and then eventually it comes closer and and you'll be able to embrace it.
But
Sometimes two persons have delayed reaction, you know, and that's normal too, because of just how that person's personality is. You know, they respond, but it takes a while for the processing to go through to hit home, and then it comes. But
What if you
it's
just
normal.
What if you just want to stay in denial?
No, because no,
I was about to ask. I was about to ask. Like,
I'm glad everybody asked that because
I was about to ask.
my father passed I was pregnant with my son, so 2021. My brother passed in 2010. I did not cry for either one. I went through the mechanical thing of dealing with
The process,
death, the
yeah,
process
what
of
you
their
got to
death
do,
and the
attend the
funeral. and all that.
funeral,
When I was in the Bahamas, locked up in my room
And
by
this is years
myself for
later.
COVID, I lost it. And I finally, and it was around this time because April. So April 20th, my brother passed, and April 22nd is my dad's birthday. And it was the 24th or the 23rd, because I remember I was going through that. I don't know, something hit me like a head, and I cried for almost a whole 24 hours. What's that?
Yeah.
That's not.
What the heck is that?
That's what I was saying earlier. That unresolved grief. If you don't grieve and process that stuff out, it hits you when you least expect.
Even
It
20
knocks you
years
down.
later.
Even 10 years later. Sometimes with some women, it hits them and it hits menopause.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You know, you have deaths from 20, 25 years back, and you have not processed that. When everything starts to go crazy and everything, it just comes out of the blue.
I want to ask that.
I was wondering if COVID is
I was
what
just going to
triggered.
ask the question because we all had to sit still.
And I was by
for COVID.
myself. I was in
And
a
you were by
foreign
yourself.
country by myself.
Yeah.
I was in an apartment by myself. I was dealing with some emotions of my own
Yeah.
to relate to my own life.
Yeah.
And of course, you can't get back home till somebody open an airport somewhere.
Yeah.
But I remember it was that week, and I was thinking about them a lot.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I allow myself to maybe let go.
And then it comes through.
Oh my
Yeah.
God! I've never had something like, and I'm scared for myself about this thing with my mother now.
Yeah.
And you're saying that at some point you gotta make it happen. That's happen.
I have seen it a lot.
I thought I was good.
I've seen it a lot. I've been to many funerals. I have heard many news of people passing. And the one thing I always see is people trying to remain strong.
Yeah, the people always say that too.
Yeah, but the thing is, they remain strong for a longer period of time. In my head, I was like, okay, you're putting on a mask, but how long would it take? Would you wait for the mask? Will you wait to take off the mask, or wait till the mask crack? Then Everybody go through.
Some point is a very interesting.
Everybody go through it differently. But the point is, the longer you hold on to it, the longer you suppress it, the more damage you will cause to yourself.
Well, but here's the thing. Maybe you're not able to also. Because if we say there's no right
way or wrong, that's
yeah.
what I'm saying.
Maybe in that moment, because I can tell you right now, I cannot complete
I know you
process.
got from your grandmother still. But
Oh, for sure.
Oh, you with your father. Because your father was even more recently than grandmother.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you guys see me get
I see you
emotional.
with your father.
Yeah.
But I know with your grandmother, every time we raise it, you like, she goes to a different place.
Cannot.
So I'm like, how does she resolve? What does she need to do
PTSD
to
to that.
resolve?
That is, to me, that's going to be and therapy, and not only therapy, there's another thing too, it was layered. In that moment, you have that immediate moment of it happening, but then I realized years later that I had to go, that too. Absolutely, injustice, because how it happened also. So it's so, but it also helped me to kind of know what to expect with my dad, and in a kind of weird way.
Yeah.
But I'm also not, like I think Anderson said, I every time I see my dad picture, I'm like,
that's
You
to
watching
me,
wondering,
it's some parts of me, I'm
It's
like,
like
he's on a boat gone somewhere.
he's not available at the moment. Yeah.
No, if you just want to be in denial for some, you cannot. Sometimes you just can't deal with it.
But
in
let
that
me ask
particular
about
moment.
this. Do people, because I think I kind of, when my mother knows, I don't know if this is a thing. I can't say I planned her leaving, but I walked myself through the process a good year, 2 years before. Like to prepare me for it. I don't know what it is, because I feel bad about it sometimes.
They call that pre-grief.
What the heck is that?
And that's normal. It's
normal.
Because I remember having that when I was in college with my grandmother.
Exactly.
You know,
Our grandmother raised her too.
You know, I would grieve and, suppose she's driving in school and I would get this sad, I would go through this crying and all this kind of stuff.
And I would pray to God and say, God, hold on till I reach down my grief.
Yeah, if you call it pre-grief, that's what it's called. It's normal. You know, because especially you're close to the person and you start thinking about them dying and then you're away and you're asking, God, and you start to feel,
keep her till I reach.
You start to feel the sadness of what if and she's died and how you're gonna feel and what's gonna happen. Then you start to go through the sadness as if it happened. So you call that pre-grief, and that's normal.
Okay. So
and does that help the process a little bit?
Not really, because you're never quite prepared.
I feel like I'm kind of a person of lived experience, because I just want to tell you, Doc, that recently, because of what happened, and my dad was pretty young, he was 54 years old. An older lady, she's also in her 50s, she's like, my mom, her mom is older, of course, and she said, sometimes I think about what would happen, and she kind of have going through the pre-grief, and you tell me if I'm wrong with that. I said, put my hand on her and say, don't bother. I said, because I used to have that same thing with my grandmother, not thinking about, because I was in school also. I remember one day walking home from school and thinking, imagine, and the tears just kept running down.
Yes. That's what I feel about my mother in Washington.
But let me tell you, when it happened to me 7 years ago, it was worse than anything I could ever experience in my life. I tell that lady, don't bother. Think about it now, because it gonna make a difference for you. It's so much more worse. And I made a post about it because of our conversation. I said, when you think about that, when you start to feel that, go hug them, make a memory, kiss them, harass them, do whatever you gotta do, because you cannot imagine the depth of the pain you feel when that person really gone. Don't waste your time trying to even drop there before they gone. But don't do it. It's normal. It's normal. But it don't prepare you.
But it doesn't prepare you.
It wouldn't prepare you.
It doesn't prepare you, and you never quite. Nobody can say, that it's gonna be this way, or you're gonna, because you don't know. You know, but because of the pre-grief, it helps to kind of soothe you, because you have those thoughts, and so you already release some emotion that's connected with the thoughts of to die and
what you will need to do.
But you're never prepared for the loss
of somebody that close to you.
I kind of actually, I either talk about, I know I feel uncomfortable talking about it, because I had my grandmother don't live here, right? And she's my queen.
Yes.
So I always have this tendency, right? Every time I think about it, I just call her.
That's it.
Grandma, what are you doing? But and then it's like, hey, Princess Hoya, and it's make me feel good. It's like, God, listen, God, don't do this. Like, I honestly, are you talking about this? And I'm guilty with it.
But that's I want to go back. I'm glad you raised it because, like, you know, I don't know if people say, if it's a thing in psychology, but people say, when somebody cross your mind, give them a call or something.
I don't do it.
And you feel guilty, at least in my case, I'm going through this right now, that you didn't call a person when they crossed your mind.
Yeah.
And like Judith saying, no, you don't go there, but it's there.
It's there,
right? Don't entertain it
too much.
With my mother, I was praying, like I said, you know, I don't get there by the 3rd of March. The 3rd of March, I'm going to be there, And I went through that, but I also, you know, they give you in a funeral home a time to meet with, as a family with the deceased before the public. And I think they understood. I was like, I don't want to do any of that. Y'all doing y'all got to do. But the morning when I got up, and I had to do it because I was trying, because again, you're busy doing the logistics, but the other thing, and I've been going through these, like you said, make a memory, etc. I've been making my memories with her just to keep reminding her that she's loved. I kept saying to my daughter, whenever something would happen, I was like, she needs to have good experiences.
Yeah,
you need to remind her. You know, and my daughter, you know, so we've been with 2 of us in the house. Now when she's no longer in the house, so the morning I got up and I was like, let's have a picture of her on my dressing table. And I was like, damn, Janet. But I needed to do that with her so I could be able to do that other thing outside. Yeah, and that's normal.
And that's normal. That's
you
okay.
have that moment
yes.
with them. So is that part of the grieving process?
That's part of the grieving process.
Wow. Yeah. That's just... I saw some family members, they had that too with my dad, and I was so grateful we had that hour, that time.
By yourself?
With ourselves, because the things that
I didn't want to make anybody, because my relationship with her was one of
them. No, of course. And you have that too. I did it with my siblings and my very close family members, mom and so. But the emotions that come out there, I was so grateful. It started to come out there.
Then went outside
in the funeral, right? It was so empowering, also to see that you don't think about it, but there's and some things the funeral home themselves will tell you, well, you could do this, you could do that, and you didn't even think about that. That's something you don't think about.
Hey, I am grateful to Royal.
Yeah, me too. With my grandmother also, because I remember after the funeral, you know, some family members, you know, they were still very much emotional.
Yeah.
And then, you know, but I remember I was present physically, but the mind was going and coming. So I was pretty calm during the whole process. And I turned to it's like almost 7 and we're still there because some family members still can't, you know. And I turned to the lady from Roy and I said, this is okay, this is not normal. She said, oh, of course, we experience worse than this. This is okay. I would want to know if my family we are right. We just because it's going on.
But I want to go back to that because we raised the wake last week on Culture Time. So now I ask it. I find out more and more since we raised it, how it came about and whether or not what we see now at wakes or in general is that. And actually, I watched a funeral this morning. I thought it was awesome. I said that's my thing. But anyway, about whether or not that works. So this is what I got from an elder. I was called his name William Marlin because we had talked about it, and I was like, I wonder where the word "wake" come from. I wonder where it came from. And basically, what I'm understanding more and more, it goes something like this: prior to the actual putting to rest, the night. So it used to be just I know it the night before, and I was wondering where I get all these other nights from because no one else I would kind of remember experiencing that too as a child, and apparently that's part of the story. But the idea was that the family would be grieving so much before going into them, and your job was to stay with them, stay awake with them until the funeral to help them grieve. Stay awake to help them, stick with them to help them grieve so they could get through that moment. Today, the wakes look a whole lot different. Does that help or not with the grieving process? Or is it because everybody does it differently?
I think everybody does it differently, but I think my experience when you see wakes, there's so much entertainment, it becomes like a social gathering.
More for the people alive, right?
More for the people alive than that process of the emotions of the pain at that particular time during the wake.
Does it help?
So it almost seems like
a detached,
right?
Yeah. Is it helpful because the one I'm asking them because you think you're honoring the spirit of the person that has departed because again, because I was told that the wake is for the people who's alive, and for the people, and I was like, okay, but does it help people to grieve when there's more alive spirit, or must there be this solemnity that will make it easier?
I think to each his own. I think people choose how they want to set the tone of the way.
And it helps everybody there to grieve with whatever.
And their likings, how they want it.
Because I asked that too with the seniors at my mother's thing, and she would, Miss Patsy said, well, in our culture, we don't dance, but if I want dance, and I was like, but which will help people to grieve? And I know a lot of people showed up to give us support.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Right? It was beautiful, right? To give support. And you feel like I wasn't carrying it, but I didn't want to be sad. I didn't want to have to be sad. And I don't know if I was taken away from the people who wanted to be sad, to grieve on that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it is own. I think that who's to say?
Yeah.
Who's to say? Because during that evening, and especially in the last years, because when I was small, I remember it being so solemn. And
yes.
But now it becomes like a social gathering. People come, they bring food, they bring dominoes, they do this, they do that. It's just more in memory of the person, reminiscing the person, those kind of things. And so how the family want to set the tone, they set the tone.
Yeah. If they want to be more like how the person was, and that chasm of who it for is a very interesting
who the ceremony is for.
Yeah, because it's sometimes, and this is the unfortunate part about some funerals or some things. When a person dies, the person lived a certain way, and the persons who their loved ones that stay, they end up doing things that was not necessarily the
reflective of the
person's life. I would just mention a couple of examples. For example, the person, was from the LGBT community, and you don't let, for example, those close friends, and you
don't let them at the event.
At the funeral, awesome. You don't let them come to the hospital if the person is incapacitated. We're talking about if the person was a gentleman or woman and they had other families and children outside, and you don't acknowledge these people or let them come and grieve for that moment. Those things really irk me. And then the person who ends up legally with the power kind of wield that power to shun those people who really were in the person's life. So for me also, I think that we need to, as a community, recognize this and it's a teachable moment. I think when we're having this discussion, to also think about how that person lives and how you can understand.
Let me ask doctors. Let's say it's a man that had two women. No, this is a true story. I mean, this happens a lot. And so you have, let's say there's a wife and there's a girlfriend. I like the word, a different partner, right? Yeah. And even if, regardless of what's happening in a marital home, the wife has the legal power.
Yes.
But you know that this person was a very intimate part of this other person's life.
Right. Yes.
Not being able to attend, let's say the funeral, let's say the girlfriend, does it affect the grieving?
Oh, definitely. I think it's so unfair.
Yeah.
And I think that it creates a lot of anger, a lot of pain, animosity. So people, I think, should be a little bit more sensitive to that, because you're not the only one.
Yes.
So it is something that I think persons should be a little more sensitive to. But it's very common. It's very common
happens,
that the persons who has the power takes the power and shun the other person, or shun the other family members or whoever. Spitefully.
Yes. Yes.
But it doesn't help the situation. It just creates more pain and more anger. In that way. But I think we need to be a little more sensitive to that.
And I want to bring up another example of a situation where, let's say the individual had children, more than one child, and a spouse, and the person dies, and the children or some of the children and the spouse, it then becomes, I don't find you never come and visit daddy, or you never come and so I then going to use that. Because is
that person also grieving though? And maybe that's their way
it could be their way of grieving, but then also, you project this kind of a feeling that you have you don't know if that individual probably could not in that moment or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I feel like I love that we having this conversation, because for me, you know, we could talk about this all the time. If you see strange things that people do in that moment, and it's just to say, raise the awareness and consciousness of that you're not the only one in that space, and not to project what you feel or what you consider love to somebody.
Right, but that person who's angry and vexed now, because like we say, you can't change it, right? So that person say, but you never visit daddy and don't come around, whatever. Is that person too not
absolutely?
Yeah, but
absolutely.
Who's to say?
Right.
We can define somebody's grief,
right,
you know,
right.
because they didn't come around doesn't mean that they don't feel
Right.
pain. You know,
and is that anger too part of the grief? Is that anger to the other person now is projecting? Is that
of course, it's part of the grief, but also part of their part of the grief and expectation how they think it should have been.
Yes.
You know, but grief is grief, and everybody grieves differently. And nobody defines. Not because I haven't been here in 5 years doesn't mean I'm not going to grieve the loss of.
Exactly.
So who's to say?
And so we need to give each other grace.
Correct. And don't define that for somebody else.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you.
Okay. So doctor, what if does the grieving process stay the same for someone who goes through the grieving process like multiple times?
Ooh.
Like, for example, I can give myself again. My this was about 16 years ago. My paternal grandfather passed away, and then 2 weeks later was my paternal grandmother. Then a week after was a cousin, and then after that was another cousin. So within the space of a month, it was 4 of them, one after the other. And before that, I never had anyone close to me pass away. So when it hit, it was how to process that.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because you have 4 different emotions happening at the same time. So you have your emotions you're feeling pertaining to your grandfather, pertaining to your cousin, pertaining to the other person. So that generally when that happens, you need to get help, support to be able to dissect it in pieces and give that process. Because what happens generally, a person shut down, they become numb and unfeeling and detached from everything because it's too much, it's an overload. And then trying to say, okay, I'm grieving for this one. No, okay. Tomorrow I'm grieving for my grandfather, tomorrow I'm grieving for my cousin, tomorrow. That it doesn't work like that. It just cannot work like that. So generally what happens, because it's so much pain, the psyche shuts down. And you become numb and detached.
And
the process.
Being
and then you do that after.
someone being numb, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing that someone just decides, listen, I don't want to feel this
right now.
This feel, I don't want to feel it. I know it happened, but let me just accept it and move on. Like,
you can't accept it and move on without feeling it. It doesn't happen like that. Emotions buried alive.
Okay.
Yeah, and they come back.
They gonna come back.
So sometimes you can be numb because there's so much things happening, and sometimes being numb can be somebody coping strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how they cope. They detach, and then after that they bring it closer and closer and closer where they can deal with it. But if their coping style is always to suppress and suppress and suppress, it would flow them sooner or later.
Okay.
It has to go somewhere. It has to process out. And so when you suppress emotion, you're not gonna be sick every minute. You get a cold every minute. You get a flu every minute. Every disease comes up in your gut.
I got sick on Monday.
Because your immune system is compromised. You know, it's a lot that's happening there with your psyche. With grief. Grief.
Also,
it's
that's
an
why
energy. It's an energy.
No, because the funeral was Friday.
Yes, last week Friday.
I was good Saturday, I was good Sunday, and Monday I just, I got chills. I started getting headache like over here, and by midday Monday, by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, I went home and I slept till Tuesday. I couldn't do anything else but sleep. But I hadn't had an appetite since just before she got sick. When I came down, it just was, I was, when you said it, energy. I was walking around with this energy like the last 2-3 weeks. I couldn't eat. I knew I needed to eat because I lose weight fast, and I was like, I can't afford to lose weight now again. But I couldn't eat. Whatever I would try, I couldn't. I went through the whole thing. And by Monday, I didn't get fever. So I kept saying it can't be a flu, but I think I'm still a little stuffy. But chills. I remember when I was at the grave, I'm sitting there and I'm freezing and I'm looking around. I was like, no, but how I got sick is because of that.
Yeah, your immune system gets shut.
Just went into.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because of the grief process, and because again, and especially if you toughen up, Which you call it the monkey off your back, and you go through the process, you do all the logistics and everything. When
that
everything's finished,
that keeps you going, girl.
It hits you, and then it drops you down. So whether you get sick, whether all those kind of things can happen right after, a week after, and you wonder what's going on. It was okay, but it will take you down. And it's better that you process it and control that yourself than if it takes it from you. Because if it takes it from you, you have no control. Then you end up with all kind of complications that are beyond you.
So Doc, can you speak to some of the strategies and your experience that you deal with when it comes to maybe a few type of ways you use to help people who come to you dealing with grief?
Well, grief is, again, I'm going back to the point, it's personal. So it depends on where they're at. But if the person, for example, let's say, for example, the person have a whole year there and they haven't gotten rid of the person's belongings. Every minute they're going inside the room. Every minute they're looking. They have a dress hang up. They're doing, different things. So that's a different type of therapy now to get them through the process of letting go, closure.
Is it important to get rid of the things? Because I got a whole room now to empty.
It's important to get rid of the things on your terms when you're ready, because that's another painful step as well. Because that's when reality hits and they're no longer here. So you got to give away, you got to start out, you got to see who wants what, and all those kind of things. So that's a process. So you have to prepare yourself for that. And sometimes during that time too is when all the emotion comes out again, or if it didn't come, it happens again. So it's something that needs to be done, but within that person time. Nobody to say, oh, the person died today.
But so getting rid of things is a healthy
it's a
thing.
part of closure, and it's healthy, because sometimes I also encourage persons too, when they're so far, change the curtains, paint the room, things.
Okay.
Those kind of things.
Here's what happened with me, my grandmother.
So letting go is important.
Letting go is very important. But letting go doesn't mean forget.
Yeah.
Because my mom died over 10 years ago, but I think of her every day. So it's something you learn to live with, but not in a grieving manner, but more in a memory. She likes to cook, so when I bake a cake, which I have her recipe, I think of her, and so the memories come in different ways.
But I think grief also changes you on a kind of I ain't no biologist, but on a DNA level. Because I remember I did not, I used to be someone who loved only earth tones colors.
Cindy wants to say something.
Okay, only earth tones. After her passing, I could not, somebody had to come and help me change the curtains, because she always changed my curtains. And since then, I have never put back earth tones. It went through a period, it had to be bright. Or I didn't want to listen to no music. It changes you on a very deep level.
You would get angry when you would.
Which part?
If you were to listen to me, would it make you angry?
No, I just couldn't. Can you imagine you love the color blue and all of a sudden you don't want it no more? You want.
Let me hear from Cindy. Another one.
That's normal.
That's normal.
Can we hear Cindy? That's another member.
Tell her to go ahead.
Oh, I have her in the system.
So, Cindy, go ahead.
Start again.
Can you hear me?
Yes. We're hearing you.
I just wanted to say thank you all for having this discussion. Thank you, Doc, for being there as well. Because we don't talk about grief enough in our community, and a lot of us are suffering, and a lot of us don't know how to do it. Do it not the proper way, but in a way for us to actually, as you say, live in a way to preserve the memory, as opposed to live in grief for an extended period of time, heavy grief for an extended period of time, and do it in a more healthier way. So I hope that we discuss this in the future some more, because it is a part of of our society. We grieve not only from persons, but from other types of engagements, whether it could be a divorce, it could be a job loss, it could be a friendship loss. All of those things also contribute to grief, and I don't think that we are coping well as a society where that's concerned. We can be going about our merry way. We may suppress some of our expressions, whether by over doing too much socializing, or over socializing and acting out in certain ways that we didn't know that we were capable of doing to deal with it. But we need to do more, I think, more of this as a community to help us, because almost every family now in particular, at this particular time as we're talking about this, are experiencing some form of in a very real way. I think you talked about that last week, Sunday, Doc, about it, that to some family members having multiples, at the same time. So this is very important. And for my person, I would say that this year made 7 years since my younger brother passed. And it was very tragic on a motorcycle. Him and his the person that he was on the bike with, so 2 at the same time. And I would say that initially in the first couple of years, it was I didn't do a good job in managing it well, because I was like the real support system for my family. And as the doctor just said, that you need to feel. So I did become numb at a certain point in my own experience. It catch up with me. It really did. I had to really dig myself out of it. And just a few pointers that I use in case somebody need them. I really lean on my faith. That's number one. And I also used to put, whether it's colorful things that would bring me joy to be in my space, and that can help put positive affirmations around me, around my living space, or wherever it was I was interacting with, to help bring me back from where I was. But I just hope that we again do more of this, because it's important for our community. And thanks for this conversation.
Thank you.
Yes, and some good points. And I also want to add that sometimes when you go through this process, the grieving process, part of letting go is redefining your new life without the person.
Wow.
So that is important, to reinvest that energy into something else, alive, that is living, that can benefit from that. Because sometimes we stay stuck there. So whether you want to develop hobbies or running something similar, whether you want to volunteer, whether you get creative, or whatever, but you need to redefine your life, It takes time. It takes time. But when you're so far, because one other thing is too, is that you need to grant yourself that year space. The first birthday, the first Christmas, the first Mother's Day, the Father's Day. After that. So after the first year goes, then it gets a little better. And that's normal. So sometimes person come, it's 3 months. I don't know why I'm still crying. And I said, but the person just died. It was 3 months. It's okay. It is okay. Give yourself that time.
And especially when you have a routine with the person to maybe pick them up, do this with them, do that with them. And it's like, what do I do on the Sunday?
I promise that's what I made a pledge to start visiting the cricket field now, but I don't know. But I don't know. I said it, but now I kind of like, I don't know how I don't feel.
You have to redefine. So you have to do something with that energy. Because all that energy was invested in the mom.
Yes.
So you have to redefine now your life now without them. And how you want to move forward. Not that you're forgetting, but you embrace all the good memories of that person, and you look at the pictures, you do things that would remember them, or whether things that they like to do. So for example, she loved to watch cricket. Well, every time you go watch cricket, that's part of like, wow, she was here, she was and that's part of the good memories.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I have a question. For people that's trying to support those people in grief, what are the strategies that we can do to help support them?
Just be there.
Then doing that.
Sometimes words don't even, and that's the beautiful thing too. Because I may not, even though you mentioned about wake and so on, it become kind of like a social gathering. I may not have been completely there, but I remember the support. I felt the love. And also this message. So it and then strangely
friends
enough,
call you and say, remember I hear.
Yeah, exactly. The messages. And strangely enough, when somebody would leave, somebody else would come. You get the feeling you're in a dip, and then somebody pop up by your house, and they come with food, or they make you,
or they show up and give you the cab so you could have a transportation, not even knowing it was coming.
Yeah, that's the next thing. It's so weird how it happens. And maybe you call that fate, universe, whatever you call it, but it positions you in a way, and the people show up for you.
Or the ones, which I gotta say it in my case, I think people, because they know me too, the ones who know you're there and they ain't come and harass you because they recognize that you need that time.
You need your time. It looks different for
that I've come to cherish, because those who would send a message, you okay? I just checking on you. I gotta say, like, it's even in a week yet. It's a good week yesterday. I don't know, but thanks. I just want to say thanks to people who do stuff like that.
And
you know,
I want to shout out to Cindy because
yeah,
Cindy's away, right?
Yeah. She's away. She's always checking on us, and
Cindy had a card delivered to my job about the passing of my dad.
Awesome.
It's just the strangest way that people show up that helps you throughout this entire process, and everybody does it in their own way.
Yeah.
And so that's the beautiful thing about the process, even though it's so bitter. But the sweet part of it is that your people show up.
Your support system.
And they show up in the way that they can. So I think on both sides we gotta give each other grace.
Right.
And if you don't know what to say, just show up and don't say nothing. Or show up and bring food. Or come and you see dishes, wash the dishes.
Yeah.
I had friends show up for me and people show up for me in the strangest way, and I'm so grateful. But it was like, wow, but maybe it's her way of making sure I was okay. That's how I felt. That's how I saw it. You know, you have to do what you gotta do, and ended up having to move out to my whole district because we were so close. We lived so close to each other, and now I'm finding myself coming back
to the district.
So it's this level of grief that you go through, and I tell people you have the rest of your life to grieve. Enjoy the people that you have right now as much as you can. Give yourself grace too. You can't show up for everybody.
But I'll say this. I want to say this. I made this my mantra in 2010 when my brother passed. Because people say life is so short. They say it, but that's the year I entered politics. I would have never done politics. I don't think if my brother had passed. I'll be honest with you, because I was like, But I've made it my mantra, and I have to pull myself back to this stuff to say, like, when somebody, because you know me, I got mouth for everything. But I got somebody who was like, yo, no, I don't want to have no argument with nobody. I said this to somebody this week, right? I said, I could die tomorrow. And the person was like, yes, what are you saying that for? So I said, so stop trying to argue with me. I'm not trying to argue with you. Because I don't want to have no arguments anymore with people. I don't know if people try to have arguments with me. Because, no, for real, because, I know at any moment, if it was the last thing you and I had was an argument. Don't argue with me for nonsense. Because I don't want that to be the last thing, and I can't do nothing about it afterwards. You understand? Like, don't. Argue about things like politics and stuff. So things like that, like people who I care about. I remember it was happening with COVID when it was going. So remember COVID, everybody was fighting everybody over COVID, and I was like, I don't want to lose a friend over COVID. So I'm not discussing COVID with anybody else anymore. Right. Because you get into these things, and then the person passes, or
and that's the last thing you
remember. That's the last thing you remember.
That's the first thing that you remember.
I don't want that. So I'm very aware more and more. My mother do it. Remember, I was with my mother the Friday. And she was gone the Saturday morning, right? And I knew I was going to come by her either before the radio program or after the radio program. Right. She didn't give me the chance, right? But I kept saying, I hope she knows that. So my father tried to pick him up 12 o'clock. St Maarten, I'll never forget. I had to pick him up midday. They called me 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning and said my father passed. And I was like, he couldn't wait. So we were going to spend the day together. What are you doing? Going and we...
You even planning your thing.
Don't do that.
Because you also feel like, because about those people who like, but I wanted to say goodbye.
Right, that's what my niece came in and said, just one more day. So I'm saying today is the last day. Pretend like now is the last moment. Stop wasting time on nonsense.
That's my approach to a lot of things with people.
Yes,
is that if you look at what a person would say who know they're going to die, I always say, tell my mother, tell my wife, tell my sister, I love them.
My mother.
And if we can function from that place of love and everything that we do, it would always keep us in that place, and we would say grace. So we have to always think like that, but we're so busy, in this fight back and forth. And it doesn't matter, because if you ask yourself, does this matter the next 2 years? It doesn't matter. It's insignificant.
Exactly.
It's
wasted time.
So it's like that in life. It's like that in relationships. That in our communication, to be able to function from that place of peace and love. And if we practice that, a lot of things will just balance itself out much more smoothly, and we won't have a lot of this guilt and unfinished resolved feelings with others.
I think that's a note for us.
Last words.
Yes.
Cindy, do her last words.
Yeah, ask her if she has anything.
Cindy, any last words?
Fika.
Yes, I completely agree. Anger, get rid of the anger, start to forgive, because when they're gone, you could try to do it, with a very different therapy modes, but it's better that you do it before they're gone, because you're gonna live with that weight, and it's not gonna be nice. So forgive, stop fighting, stop being angry, and just much peace and strength to the families that are experiencing grief at this time. And what we have to do as a community, as you said, sometimes we should be in a posture that people don't even have to ask for our help as a community. We're supposed to be able to show up, and offer assistance to those that are in need. And I think that's what we are at St Maarten does. Helping that's in need. And grief is one of those times as well, because people don't always have the wherewithal to say, how they feel or what they need. We just need to show up. And even if they show up and to just sit down and be quiet, and just to be in that space, that's something that's also important.
Awesome.
I'll end there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who's next? Doc, you have any closing words for our audience?
Well, in this process, I'd like to say, take care of yourself. It's very difficult sometimes when you're going through the grief process to not eat, not get enough rest, and you go through a lot of pain. So wherever you can get a support.
And GB in the tax office don't help.
You can say that louder.
Just won't say that. Go ahead, yes.
But to take care of yourself, to be able to go through that process and take it one at a time, because it is a process and it's a time thing, and time does heal.
Awesome. Let me let you guys close off. I just want to say thank Dr. Judith Arndell for being with us here today. I also want to thank Mr. Michael Granger and Franz Richardson for giving us this opportunity to come to you every Saturday at the same place and same time. This is a topic that we're going to talk about, like we said, we've been saying that we're going to talk about for a while still, because the whole community is going through this, and we want to do our part as one as XM. We're reminding people to come out to the protest march on the 20th, which is next Saturday, right? Next Saturday in Bellevue, not Bellevue, over there, close to, by the Boberty property. Stay tuned for that. Wherever you hear, just come out. It's our land matters and Martin matters, and if it's important to you, and securing the future, because it's all about the future generations. Do your part in whatever way that you can. And on that note, I'll let the young Turks take us out of here.
I think this is a topic that was well overdue, and I think we scratched the surface. Thank you, Doc, so much for your expertise on the topic and just for what all you do in the society and the community. I would like that we give each other grace, like I said, in this process. It's a personal journey, but it's a journey we all will have to deal with at some point in time, and it looks different for everybody. So give each other grace, honor the person as much as possible, and just give yourself grace if you didn't get the opportunity to, but that you have the opportunity right now. Do it. Do what you gotta do. Create those memories. Harass that person. Do what you gotta do. Don't spend too much time pre-grieving. If you can make some memory, even if it's a call, even if it's a beep, do whatever you can, and just if we move from that level of love, we can heal so much more as a society. And do not be afraid to seek help. Get therapy. It's okay. I've done it. I can tell you, it helps so much. Among other things that you can do, it's one of the best things I did in my journey.
Yep.
Till next week.
Sarah Anderson and Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Dr. J, for coming through, and your insights were so much. It was so much needed, because now that you're saying it, I going back in my mind to some of my experiences, and I realized, I am that person that the delay happens, and then after everything just breaks down. And thank you for that, because that now has me now seeing, okay, prepare myself for when it's going to happen.
I just needed to say to you here, thank you for the Dr. J facility. To give my mother a place to be able to live in a little more peace and dignity. So knowing that we as family, at least we as family couldn't help her make that transition before her passing, just the fact that you didn't have to convert, because that's not the service that you provide.
Correct.
And I'm aware of that, and I don't know how much that means to us, that you were able to convert your facility, open up your arms, your staff and everybody to my mother, to others who need a space to be able to live with some dignity before that final thing. And I think that too is helping my grieving process. If I didn't have that, I don't know how I would have been dealing with it. So I just want to say, Judith, thank you so much for that.
It's a pleasure. It's our pleasure having your mom there.
This was a very interesting conversation. We do thank you for coming. We definitely, this is not gonna be the last time. For sure.
No.
We have, yes, definitely. This ain't won't be the last. So, yeah, and I would like to add on to what, basically, you know, hold on to what she said. Just create memories. Create memories with the loved ones. You know, even if it's a phone call, a pop-up, because you never know. And I'll rather say, I don't want to remember you as my last argument. So, yes, while the time is here, use it wisely, you know. And yeah, so wish everyone have a blessed weekend and a blessed week ahead, and be safe and have a good night, everyone.
From my closing words, first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Doctor, once again, and condolences to all the friends and family, even though it's long overdue. I will give my condolences to, and my final message is, life comes and goes. Just like a flower, it starts from a seed and it dries out. But take your time to process. Your feelings and emotions are very valid to process too. Always remember to love yourself, love the person, and to keep living in their honor. Don't count the one thing that you lost, because it's not gonna come back. Appreciate it. Count the few things that you still have left, because they'll be here for you until the end of time. Appreciate every breath you take and every breath you give, because you never know when it's gonna be your last. So don't live to die, live to keep living. Have a good night.
Awesome.